More draft discussion now with Eric Edholm, NFL writer for Yahoo Sports. Eric, let's start with the biggest Michigan storyline. Jabrill Peppers going to Cleveland with the 25th pick in the first round. He's been called a man without a position. How does he fit with the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have such an interesting situation because I think their approach was, let's just get as much talent as we can. And you saw with their first three picks, Myles Garrett first, then Jabrill Peppers, and shortly thereafter, David Njoku from Miami. All three of them, I think you would put in the exceptional athlete category. So that's number one. They got that problem out of the way. I think he's probably going to be – they're going to use him as kind of a nickel safety, as sort of a pseudo linebacker safety type on defense, sort of figure out a role for him. They'll use a lot of those three safety looks. So he'll essentially be – kind of like the nickel back, and I don't know if he'll go out and cover the slot or things like that, but you can bet they're going to use him on returns. I think that's going to be a huge part of his role. Who knows? Maybe they have a package for him on offense. We saw how exciting he was with the ball in his hands the last couple seasons. So the one position he hasn't played a lot of, safety, probably going to be closer to the role he plays in the NFL, but they have to figure it out.
One pick before Peppers went to Cleveland, the Oakland Raiders rolled the dice a bit with Gareon Conley. This despite the fact that just a few days before the draft, he faced a sexual assault allegation. So just how risky was that pick?
I think very risky, and it's like, well, people are saying, hey, you're not knocking the Cincinnati Bengals for Joe Mixon, for instance, a guy who hit a woman back in 2014, but you are knocking the Raiders. And my explanation is this. Do we have the full amount of information on Gareon Conley's case? I don't think we do. We're still finding out. I mean, just yesterday, his lawyer said, hey, there was the consensual act that happened between the two people. Obviously, charges may or may not be pending. We don't know yet. So we also don't know what the Raiders know. Have they done a full investigation in such a short time period? Everyone who watched Gareon Conley and Marshawn Lattimore last year knew they were an elite pair of corners. Conley had this not happened. He had interviewed very well at the Combine. He had tested well. He had passed every test prior to April 9th when the alleged incident occurred. So, he was considered at that point to be a very safe prospect. Now everything has changed. So we'll see. I don't know what to feel about this pick. And if he's cleared, if nothing happened that was wrong, it could be a great selection. If not, the Raiders did take a massive risk.
Two Wisconsin players go late in the first round. T.J. Watt to Pittsburgh, Ryan Ramczyk to New Orleans. How quickly can those players have an impact on their respective teams?
Yeah, first with Watt, I think the Steelers were sitting there a couple picks ahead of where Dallas was choosing at number 28, saying, I don't think we're going to get him. And that was the guy that they had kind of honed in on. They saw how much he improved throughout the season. He seemed like a natural fit in their defense, an upgrade over Jarvis Jones, the guy they drafted 4 years ago. So I think the feeling was we'll be lucky if we can get him. And so when Dallas passed and Green Bay traded down, they had their man lined up. That was really, those two picks, Green Bay and Dallas, I think they felt pretty poorly about going in. So great fit right away. Love to see him possibly get on the field right away as a rusher. They don't have to force him into the action. As far as Ramczyk is concerned, it was not a pick that a lot of people projected. But I think he's in line to start for next season, barring injuries or anything that happens along the way. They don't have to force him in. And that hip can heal naturally. They don't have to get him on the field day one and pencil him in as the left tackle. So it's a nice luxury to have.
Which pick, Eric, outside of day one, whether it be on day two or day three, from the Big Ten, could turn out to be a late selection steal?
Yeah, I think, if you look at maybe like Monty Nicholson to the Redskins, I felt like kind of got overlooked a little bit in the process. And maybe he's a little better prospect than some people were willing to say. And so going, kind of mid-round 4, it seemed like a really good spot for him. He's a hitter. He's got some size. He offers sort of a different look than they've had in that secondary in a while. And they wanted a safety, and they weren't able to get one before that. So I thought it was great. Dan Feeney going to the Chargers. When they went with Forrest Lamp, another guard, another interior player, earlier in the second round, I didn't necessarily expect them to double back and get Feeney later, but that could end up being one of those kind of inspired choices. And so it's sort of showing some patience and some willingness to build up the O-line. Feeney was somebody that O-line coaches really fell in love with, and he'll add some toughness to to Phillip Rivers and that offense out there.
All right, lastly, Eric, how surprised were you to see C.J. Beathard go as early as he did, third round to the San Francisco 49ers?
I'll say this. I knew people liked him. And I'm not a scout. I just sort of, watch all the players and gather information from people who do this from a living. I talk to coaches and scouts. And when I was down at the Senior Bowl, I was struggling a little bit. I wasn't naturally seeing what he offered other than those intangibles that everybody raved about. And everyone knows, look, he could be a coach one day. He's basically a coach on the field, all that different sort of stuff. But to say, hey, a team is going to trade up in round 3 for him, I didn't necessarily expect it, even with those kind of elite traits that, you can't teach, that aren't, measured with a measuring stick, that don't show up in the statistics. So all those different things, and it's a team in the San Francisco 49ers that needed quarterback help. And maybe they just valued him a little more than I did, and that's fine because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch had a great weekend. They seem to know what they're doing already.
Eric Edholm, NFL writer for Yahoo Sports and author of the Shutdown Corner blog. Eric, we appreciate all the insight, my friend.
Sounds good. We'll check in with you soon.